Hey guys, and welcome back to Twilight Princess. You join us here today in the Temple of Time to hunt down yet another shard of the Mirror of Twilight.
The whole reason this dungeon's even in the game, you can obviously tell, is that they wanted it in Ocarina of Time. It didn't happen, so now it's Retribution time, and we finally get our Temple of Time, aka Temple of Light. Sort of, because you're going to see that the light medallion is all over the place. So it's sort of ambiguous on which is which idea comes from which situation, but so they just smashed it together and we got this pretty okay dungeon.
Topics and themes aside, I like the look of the place. Aesthetically, it's very fancy.
It's definitely, if you want to find a dungeon or a temple that looks like a temple, here you go. Prime example. Because all the other ones, let's see. The Forest Temple, no, that didn't look like a temple.
No.
The Goron Mines looked like a mine, so good job there. The Lakebed Temple, parts of it looked like a temple, but then you had, like, all outer areas that, no, that was not a temple. Arbiter's Ground, prison, but we didn't see that many cells. And then you had the Snow Peak Ruins, which were a house, so, you can't really judge that. But yeah, so far, this is the first temple that the entirety looks like a temple.
Yeah, I can easily picture, like, Hylian priests and nuns walking about this place, giving prayers to the free Oscar awards.
Or the dragons, or the other goddesses, or the fairies, or whatever else they want to fucking worship nowadays.
Yeah, there's one or two crazy Hylians that worship these guys, and god, they really give off a creepy aura, especially that little floating head though.
I don't get how their life cycle works out, but they're born with just a head and wings, and then they develop the chicken body complete with pointy chicken breasts.
We'll get to them in a future part, but yeah, actually I have no follow-on to that. We'll get to them in a future part. Bye-bye for now.
I have a follow-up. They followed us into the past because they're looking for technology that belongs to their race. So they need our help to get further into the dungeon. But the only assistance they can give us is they warp us out of the dungeon. So sort of counterproductive to what they want us to do.
Brilliant. Tell you what, instead of us going around hunting for small keys, why don't I jam your head in, the lock of each locked door we come to and you unlock it for us?
Yeah, just put the little head in. Just, go in there and just pick it. Or just stay in there. You'll jam all the gears, then I can open the door.
No worry, I got this shit. Oh, spider, kill it!
This really shouldn't be called a Temple of Time. This should be the Temple of Arachnid.
There's a lot of switch puzzles in this place. That's not really a puzzle, that one. Pretty bad example to kick off a topic with. But get used to putting things on things.
Yeah, well, to be fair, you say it's not a puzzle, but we're dealing with 3D Zelda. That's a puzzle. That is the extent of a puzzle, unless you're pushing blocks.
Man, you've become really cynical about 3D Zelda lately.
Just about the puzzle aspect. I mean, aesthetics, the games have gotten better. In terms of characters, both in their design and their personality and how they interact with the story, they've gotten better. Enemies have gotten more vibrant. They're no longer just color palettes. But in terms of puzzle, they haven't gotten better. So that's not even to say that, they're worse. It's just that I don't see the growth in Zelda puzzles that I see with all other aspects of the series. And that kind of makes me sad.
You don't have to take out these keys, but I like doing a bit of target practice every so often. It keeps me sharp, keeps me fresh.
So there's windows in this temple, so that means there's an outside, clearly. We're in the past. How's about we just jump out the window, go to the sages, and just, give them a little tidbit that in the future when they need to execute a dude with oddly green skin, to maybe go for the head.
Yeah, stab him in the head, do it!
And then all our problems are solved, but then by doing so, we wouldn't have had to go to the past, which means we won't have gone to the past to warn them, and then, ow, time travel headache.
Where's the doctor when we need him? Anyway, that thing that exploded back there with the hammer, that was in Wind Waker. Those things were in Wind Waker, weren't they? What are they actually called?
They're Armos, and yeah, they have been in Wind Waker. They've also been in several other games. They've been in Ocarina of Time, they were in Majora's Mask, but they keep changing their look every once in a while. In A Link to the Past, they just sort of were like horn statues with a shield and sword. Then in Ocarina of Time, they kind of were all stone until they came to life. And then the 3D Ocarina of Time kind of gave them a flesh tone when they came to life, which was a really good addition that I think was in the original, but you just couldn't tell because N64 technology. But their strategy has always pretty much been the same. Wait for them to come alive, and then hit them in the back, or hit them in whatever glowy bit they have, and then get away. Because then they're going to start throwing a temper tantrum before they blow up.
You know, if it weren't for the fact that the enemies were already animate when we got here, I would say this place is a massive allusion to Hyrule Castle. Again, going back to Wind Waker.
Either Hyrule Castle, or I would say Temple of the Gods, or Tower of the Gods. Because you'll also notice, too, that with this dungeon, we're going to be ascending for the most part. There's one central puzzle to this entire thing, is that in the entrance chamber, Midna noticed that all the statues have been pretty symmetrical, but in the one instance that there wasn't a partner statue, yeah, we're going to be spending the entire temple getting that statue and bringing it all the way back to the entrance chamber. And you're going to notice that we're going to be ascending for the first half and then descending for the second half. So I guess maybe the temple is designed to be a tower. And there's lots of statues, which there were a lot of statues in the Tower of the Gods as well.
Just gotta get another one of these mini statues and bring it back to the Switch.
I like how they have horns like the old-fashioned Darknuts and the old-fashioned Armos. Blade traps, they're actually considered an enemy. I don't know why. They should be considered just a puzzle or a trap, but blade traps are classified as a Zelda enemy.
Like, if this was a Donkey Kong game, it would appear on screen in, like, an enemy roll call.
And its name would start with a K.
Make sure you put that thing, we've well past this at this point, but make sure you put that thing down on the Switch while you're standing on the raisable platform, otherwise it will leave you behind.
Or, if you can have really good rolling timing, you can just put one statue on one switch, stand on the second switch, and then right before the cutscene plays, you sort of side jump or roll onto the platform right before it raises, and then you just quickly get off before it lowers.
I was trying to get back to this chest before the loading animation for it appeared, so I'd slowly rise up. Sadly, was not to happen in this take.
I see that all the fucking time. Every time people want to try and save time, it's like, I'm going to stand right where the chest is, and then they get pissed off when they end up standing on top of the chest instead of right in front of it. And it's like, well, that's what you fucking get.
You know, try to be fancy, end up doing retakes. That's my footage recording adventures in a nutshell, really.
Are we going to end up back in that room at any time in this video?
No. You know me, I don't really venture off the beaten path during these recording sessions.
Well, then for reference, later in the dungeon you can go back there to solve a second puzzle to get a piece of heart. That green crystal reminds me of The Sims.
A little bit, yeah.
Maybe Link is a Sim. It would explain a lot of the stupid things he does.
And his inability to talk and whatnot.
So there's one sequence break in here where instead of hitting this crystal about 2-3 times, after the first hit, where you were standing to hit it the second time, you can actually look in the opposite direction and just hook shot your way through that circle target and then just get to the end of the room.
Interesting. Claw shot, but it does sound pretty cool.
And the weird thing is that was actually a trick that I did the first time I ever played the game. Like, I never got how people couldn't have figured that out. Like, I don't know.
I'm seeing what you're saying about all the light medallion symbols everywhere, because there was one on the bell back there.
They're all over the bells. There's one in the floor of like every single room. And like I said, we're just giving Rauru, whatever, we're giving that sage his dues. Because it was always so weird in Ocarina of Time. It's like, I'm an adult now. Hey, you want this medallion for free? Sure thing, man.
Yeah, I've just got like tens of thousands of them lying around.
They're like gym badges. They have an entire cache of them, and they just hand them out to whoever manages to make it to them.
Metal Lizalfos, pretty nasty customers. As far as I'm aware, you cannot use the mortal draw on these guys.
Dinolfos, though. It's sort of a reference back to the Dinolfos. I know it sounds like I'm saying the same thing, but know that the previous one was D-I-N-O, like a dino, and these are Dynalphos with a D-Y-N-E, so it's hardcore because it has a Y instead of an I.
You say that? I was thinking of an enemy that has wings that we'll be seeing in the dungeon after the Temple of Time.
But I like the Dynalphos because they sort of remind me of the Stalfos in the Forest Temple and Ocarina of Time, in that, you know, they're heavily armored, they know how to actually use their shield, and they're not completely stupid. I would definitely credit them as a competent, maybe challenging enemy. The only problem is that it's too little too late. You find the Stalfos in the first adult dungeon. We're on, like, the anti-penultimate dungeon, and we're just now getting enemies that can block with a shield?
Can we just skip this room? Can I edit it out in post?
Yeah, we have to do with not only the mini Gomas, but the Goma larvae. And I had to do some research for these enemies because I wasn't entirely sure on whether spiders have larvae or not, or whether they have nymphs. I actually had to get a friend to research it for me because there was no way in hell I was going to look up pictures of spiders.
Larvae's bad enough, but fucking nymphs.
Yeah, nymphs is usually the term you go for insects where instead of having metamorphosis, it's just a smaller version of itself. Turns out the answer is both! Spiders have larvae until they molt for the first time, then they become nymphs, and then they become adult spiders.
Oh, Jesus Christ, no. Moving on.
I do like how these blade traps, when you first enter, they're all lined up, but the longer you wait, the more disconnected they become. So it's essentially, the longer you wait, the harder the room, which I think is really clever.
Temple of Time is a great dungeon to practice the mortal draw on, by the way, because you've got ample amounts of room here, and there's plenty of guys willing to just run towards you.
It's a great place to practice any of the hidden skills. The lizards and the Dynalphos, they're a really good enemy to practice multiple options because they're susceptible to every single sword skill you have, but it's up to you to determine which one you use and how often. So if anything, you could just use this dungeon as sword practice. Also, I love the use of pendulums, bladed or not. Pendulums in the Temple of Time.
Yep.
Because, you know, they're in clocks. Although it kind of makes me wonder why there's not more gears in this temple. It's like they tried to go with the clock aesthetic, but they only met you halfway with the pendulums. Would have been cool if you got a lot more... Essentially, I keep thinking of the inside of the clock tower in Majora's Mask and thinking just turn that into a dungeon, and that would have worked perfectly.
Well, I guess the Goron Mine kind of took up the whole mechanical base dungeon tropes. They didn't want to do that twice in one game.
I guess so. The Goma larvae can be quite annoying. Their AI is the exact same as Boo's in Mario games. If you look at them, they run away, but they'll attack you if you have your back to them. So there's a lot of different methods you can use. You could try and use the ball and chain, but using it more as it spins around you as opposed to tossing it. But you can also use the spinner, as when you pump, it sends out a little shockwave, and it can deal with the Goma larvae all around you.
Now, I won't be picking this up now, because if I did, it would kind of be a waste, and I don't think it would let me pick it up anyway. But that chest has 50 rupees in it, and in the previous room, with all the things that I'm not going to mention, because I'm kind of going to throw up if I do, you can also take out all the things in that room and get 50 more rupees.
At least it's some variation, as opposed to, you know, Lake Bed Temple, where it was nothing but 20s.
You know, it'd be funny if you just found these things scattered about. It's like, oh, your wallet's full, I'll just throw it back on the ground.
Your wallet's full, why don't you just give it to the chicken? I'm sure it has pockets.
Mini-boss time. Great atmosphere in this temple.
Yeah, it's one of the few mini-bosses that you get this entering cinematic. And this room, it's really cool. It's shaped like I believe it's the Pantheon in Greece. You know, you have this semicircle dome with the aperture at the top to let in some light. And notice that the light is beaming in the center of the light medallion symbol. Ah?
Very nice, very nice. Casting light on the Dark Nut, probably the best incarnation of the Dark Nut too. I fucking love this design.
And he starts with a cutscene too. A cutscene, mind you, that you can damage him during. If you manage to toss the boomerang or shoot a bomb arrow in time, you can damage him during his, little show-offy cutscene.
These guys are perfect for using the Hin skills against it. They won't be taken down by the Mortal Draw, I'm pretty sure. Anyway, but Helm Splitter especially works great against these guys.
As well as Backslice, or if you can just chain together your basic stab, you can usually get 5 in before you do a jump slash, and that sort of fucks with his AI.
This part's great. Once you take off all his armor, he'll become super fast, so you got to be careful here. Just keep using like the Backslice, knock him off balance, and give him a few of these.
And we're going to encounter Darknuts later in the game, spoilers, but this guy's actually different than them. He requires 2 more hits, so it's sort of a variation on that old video game trope where, they turn mini-bosses or bosses into just regular enemies later on in the game, but this mini-boss Darknut is actually special.
This design kind of reminds me of the robot Sherwood from Doctor Who, but I guess this is a kind of a thing that comes before another thing because this came out first, obviously.
And also we blew up a human. Possibly. Maybe.
We took off one layer of his armor. He could have been like a big old skeleton thing underneath, I guess. And here we go. The Dominion Rod. Do you want to explain this one, Maxi?
Alright. You remember in Wind Waker how in Tower of the Gods you got the command melody?
Mm-hmm.
In order to control all the Armos and the statues? Yeah, this is essentially a complete streamlined version of that. Rather than having to pull out your Wind Waker, play the song, then get a cutscene where you control the statue, now you just pull out your rod and toss a little light ball at whatever statue you want.
What an unfortunate name. You've also kind of got to be aware of spacing. Like, the further you are away from the statue when you cast your magic, it will create that bigger gap, like, between you two. So I would recommend, if you're trying to, like, go through a narrow space, cast it when you're right next to it.
Yeah, the spacing from when it's cast remains the same. However, there are ways to manipulate it. If you remember the puzzle when we entered the Sacred Meadow, one of the ways to get the statues from moving was to trap them into a corner while you move the other one. You can actually use a similar method when using the Dominion Rod. If you can walk the statue into a wall and then walk towards it, that's actually one way to close the distance gap without having to, take the magic ball out and then reuse the Dominion Rod.
This is pretty cool. Swing the Wii Remote, boom, it drops its hammer.
Yeah, this is another thing too where the motion controls actually help out with the feel. Rather than being solely based on the motion controls just add, a sort of cathartic feel to it. It's also not explicitly told to you that if you swing the Dominion Rod a second time, that you get the hammer swing. So that's something you kind of got to figure out, but it's pretty basic.
That whole moving into a wall to manipulate spacing is something that would be brought back in Super Mario 3D World, by the way, with the cherry clones, and it's actually quite annoying because in this game you're not asked to go down a disappearing slide with up to like 4 copies of yourself.
Ouch. Another thing too is that when the statues go downstairs, they don't go down individual steps, rather they just slide all the way down to the bottom, which I guess is sort of the way that they safeguard it to prevent you from walking the statues upstairs.
I just love the little animation of him walking. It's so adorable.
I like the color that they chose for the lights, because they could have went with the blue with the Armos, but the green-yellow that they went with, really good.
Very ethereal. It kind of reminds me of something. It'll come to me.
I gotta imagine the business meeting Nintendo had when they were designing this dungeon. It's like, well, we came up with the Dominion Rod. Is there anything we can add to it to make it fun? Fuck yeah, have it smash everything in the dungeon that ever pissed you off.
There you go, a little bit of manipulation for you.
I actually didn't know about that way.
Yes, you can use the Dominion Rod on big and small statues.
If it's inanimate and it has a hole in it, use it. You can also extend the range of the Dominion Rod, but you can only extend it the length of one backflip. pretty much if you toss the ball and then backflip either right before or when it hits the statue, it still counts it. But it also includes the distance of your backflip. It's one way you can solve that puzzle without using one of the little statue guys, is you put the statue right in front of the step, then toss it, backflip onto the switch, and then he's still on the switch and you can just walk him forward.
Man, we're like 3 games into the Zelda series, and you've still got so much trivia. I hope it lasts. I hope it lasts.
So long as Nintendo keeps making Zelda games the way they have, I will never run out of material to talk about in which the games are broken.
Shit, you could actually go to that mountain in the distance. I got nothing.
Yeah, no. It's like, damn it, Zelda, why did you have to get patched? Oh god, no.
Speaking of catharsis, this is catharsis.
Using bugs to blow up other bugs? That's hardcore as fuck. That's pretty metal, man.
I didn't even realise I'd set bombings to be the thing for me bow and arrow.
Could you just imagine just the bombling who's tied to your arrow as he slowly approaches his fellow insects, or bugs, because, you know, spiders are not insects, but as he approaches his fellow creepy crawly, and just the song that plays in the slow-mo, and it's all dramatic as he approaches.
This is probably, quotation marks, the hardest puzzle in the dungeon. And it's a balancing puzzle. And it's not that hard. Temple of Time isn't the most challenging dungeon in all of Twilight Princess. I think we may have passed it already. I'd qualify the Lakebed Temple to be the hardest.
Yeah, Lakebed definitely was more confusing. I don't even want to say it's challenging, because the fighting is about on par with all the other dungeons, but it's definitely the temple that you can get yourself lost in, or you can get turned around easily. In this dungeon, like I said, it's very linear. It's pretty much an ascension and then a descension. And the puzzles are never hard. Rather, they can just come off as tedious. Especially this one. This one is more time consuming than all the other puzzles combined. The other ones is just a matter of realizing your distance and then planning ahead for it. Once you got that figured out, all the puzzles are the same.
I would heavily recommend, before you go for the boss key, which is in a room adjacent to this one, just look up at the ceiling, you'll see a claw shot target. It took me a while to figure that out. I had to go back over my guide, but regardless, take this guy to the bell first, then deal with all the balancing bollocks.
Look up, stupid.
Right?
It also took me a while to figure out that this is the same statue, just being teleported via the bells. For a while, I really thought that you were just getting multiple different statues, and you were returning them to their individual bells. But then you realize, oh wait, the whole point is to get one statue. I thought maybe it was a chain of statues, it was a relay, but no, it's just one being teleported to the end.
Hammering statue conga line.
That sounds fabulous. Like, hella fabulous.
Okay, that should be weighted enough. Let's go to the ceiling.
One thing I like about this puzzle too is that it does account for Link's weight. I mean, other puzzles do too, but it's one thing that I'm sure people not familiar with, you know, decently designed puzzles are going to completely forget, is that, yeah, your player character also has mass, and therefore also has weight.
Oh, that tinkling can mean only one thing. It's our old buddy, the Poe.
Are we going to get all of them in this playthrough? Because I know that you're actually doing a lot more with this playthrough than we had in previous Zelda playthroughs.
We're going to get at least 20, which is the amount you need to get the final bowl.
Well, that's enough to get a prize actually worth getting, because I'm going to let you guys know, the final prize for getting all the Poes, not worth it. Don't do it.
Gotta be honest, Temple of Time, this is a bit of a downgrade after fighting a Dark Nut.
Normally, there's sort of a build-up with these dungeons to get the boss key. You know, the mini-boss is a pretty decent set piece, and then they build it up, because now you got your dungeon item. Because now, usually it's even an addition to whatever the mini-boss was, but this, nah, these are enemies that we've taken out already, like 3 dungeons ago. Come on.
The Dark Nut was just kind of a surprise, a preview, rather, to what's to come. Here they just had a few, whatever these guys are called, and just chucked them in a room.
Yeah, the Helmosaurs and the Armos. This room also looks a lot like all the rooms in the Arbiter's Ground. Like, it's not as shiny and polished as the rest of the dungeon.
Just a side room, really. This puzzle, actually, is kind of ingenious, because there's enough stuff up here to put something on every switch bar one. So you're thinking to yourself, what can I, do now? You can actually take the Helmasaur's armor, bring it up to this level, careful not to fall off, mind you, and place it on the switch, and that will be heavy enough to weight it down.
It also could be a trip up to something that the dungeon just taught you, which I was talking about, that Link himself has weight. You probably just figured out the scale puzzle. It's like, oh yeah, Link is pretty heavy. Maybe I can use him on the fourth switch. And then you realize, oh no, wait, the switches have to continuously be pressed. Because that's usually how button puzzles usually work. It's one or the other. Either the buttons have to continuously be pressed, or you just have to press them all at the same time once.
Okay, we have the big key, so let's take that statue back to its home, and we can go fight the boss.
It's also a puzzle that can be solved without the Dominion Rod, because like you said, there's enough Helmasaur shields that you can put 2 on each button, and then there's 2 little statue guys that don't require the Dominion Rod. So if you want, you can get the boss key well before you get the Dominion Rod itself.
I wonder if it gives them a polish and a wash when they're inside there.
I think he goes to the spa. He goes to the ethereal spa. Possibly even the wolf dimension.
Oh, I'm feeling so much fresher now. And ready to destroy.
Yay, do my bidding.
Just knock this fucking wall down. Yeah, there you go.
The meeting had to have gone. What can we do to make the Dominion Rod even better?
A little access ramp for the statue.
Well, hey, Hyrule is very considerate of all of its citizens, abled or disabled.
Possessed or depossessed.
Oh, the poor thing, it can't get past architecture. It's so sad. It's so big and strong, but such a little tiny bump in the wall impedes it.
Now there are beamers in here, which can be destroyed.
Everything can be destroyed. You know what, let's just hammer the floor enough times and we'll fall all the way down into the boss room. There was no point in even getting the key.
Just give me a few years. We'll get there eventually.
Well, we have plenty of time before we get to the present day, so hey, have at it.
Loved the animation back there, Link. Very professional. I didn't mean to do that.
Hey, that happens all the time. That's not even like, oh, Nintendo, why are you so bad? Who hasn't tried to get into the bell to see what happens? Curiosity, man.
I wasn't trying to get into the bell. I was trying to get on with things as fast as possible.
Well, maybe getting into the bell is the pro strat. You ever consider that?
Well, if it works for statues, I guess it could work for Link as well. I mean, we're partially green. Mostly green, rather.
We have the personality of a statue.
That is true. That is very true. Link is just a character avatar, really, or a player avatar.
You know, Link, he sympathizes with the statues. I mean, he's an emotionless, faceless character being controlled by something against his will to do shit that he really doesn't want to do anyways.
Whether it be the goddess or the player, Link is not really in charge of his own destiny, really.
You gotta imagine the Dominion Rod used to control him. It's probably the tunic itself.
Thankfully, the statue has a very large hammer, which makes what's coming next extremely satisfying.
It would have been cool if you could, like, control the statue while you brought out a second item. That way you could use Smashy Hammer and then pull out your ball and chain and just go on destruction.
Be careful though, because as you saw there, you can accidentally get in the hammer's path and bop yourself on the head.
I do know that, actually. Huh. Leave it to Tom to fuck up so badly that I learned something.
The funniest part of this, part I guess for me, was not even noticing that I was killing Lizalfos in the background, because the shockwave or whatever went through the barrier. I was just killing them without me noticing.
We didn't really talk about the shockwave for the jump slash all that much, but yeah, it's also pretty useful for crowd control. Although, not the crowd control against these larvae, because once again, you're looking right at them, they're going to run away, and you kind of got to look at them to do the jump slash.
At least now it's given us a proper reason to kill all those things. Besides, money, you want some? Take it.
Although it could be a bit confusing. I mean, yeah, it's the only option of an action you have at that point.
Were there lava inside that BMOS?
Yes. I'm assuming that's where the Goma nests. You know, it's probably like a wasp or something.
No,
the
not a
spider
whirlpool.
latches on and... Damn it, Tom, I must educate you on the grossness of arachnids.
I'm well aware of the grossness of spiders, thank you very much.
Yeah, we don't need it. We don't need it. We don't need it.
2 hours later, like, Lizalfos are just extinct now. I went through the entire... There's a lot of them in this temple. I don't know why.
It would have been hilarious if before coming to the Temple of Time, there were Lizalfos, not everywhere, but, you know, they existed. But then after this temple, the population drastically decreased because you killed them all in the past and therefore it affects their population in the present.
Maybe that's why you don't see many of them on Hyrule Field, but you did in, like, the prototype of Twilight Princess.
All I'm asking for is for Zelda to be exactly like Chrono Trigger in every single possible way.
Well, being like Chrono Trigger ain't exactly a bad thing, let's be honest, dude.
Also, I did notice that, on the walls, there's a lot of mosaic reliefs. A lot of the architecture, as I said before, is very Greek-inspired. You had the Pantheon Dome where the mini-boss was, you have the mosaic murals, you got a lot of the pillars. It kind of makes me curious on who the Hyruleans were taking cues from.
Well, not the Greeks, man, because they reside in our dimension.
There could be crossovers. We can go into the past, we can definitely go into other worlds.
This is true, this is true. Statue versus statue. Who will win? Surprise, it's me.
Reminds me of those old robot fighting shows, where you just had those teams of nerds and they would build these kick-ass robots, and then all they would do is just unleash them in a cave.
You mean Robot Wars?
Yes! My favorite was the one that just had like a flipper. Its whole purpose was, I have a spatula, and it would fuck shit up. I need to bring that back. I fucking love fighting robots.
As long as it's got Craig Charles as the commentator, I'm all good.
You know, I never noticed that the Gomas actually have 4 legs. They're not really spiders then.
Not yet, anyway.
Oh.
I'm trying not to give away the boss of the temple for those who haven't actually played the game, but you should probably know what's coming. Here's a hint. It's not a giant clock.
In case you haven't figured it out, yes, we are going to be fighting a giant statue. That's the reason why they're all over the place.
Comes to life with a threatening oh.
Tower of the Gods had a giant statue as the final boss, so it's not that out of the norm.
There you go. Duo reunited, and the door opens.
Link's OCD has been cured now that the room is symmetrical.
Not even a single comment from Midna. I mean, we went off on a wild goose chase because of what she said, and she didn't want to, like, give praise. No, it's not on.
It's sort of a quiet appreciation. Since she had her personality change, she doesn't need to let us know that we're doing a good job. We should just know that already. This little last gauntlet room kind of reminds me of the end of the Earth Temple in Wind Waker.
You're gonna have to refresh my memory on that one, please, mate.
The best way I can describe it is that there was a bunch of shit moving back and forth that could kill you in that temple too.
Earth Temple, Earth Temple. I think you mean the Wind Temple, actually.
The one where you have to deal with Makar.
Yes, that's the Wind Temple.
Oh shit. I keep thinking that one's Earth because it has so many plant-based puzzles in it.
Yeah, it's kinda weird.
Man, Nintendo, get better at naming your shit. To be fair, everything is everything else. If you just happen to call Snow Peak Snowhead, or vice versa, it doesn't fucking matter. It's all the same.
Yes, thank you, Mexi, thank you. This right here is actually kind of similar to a puzzle we did near the start of the dungeon, where we had to place a pot down, go through a gate, and then shoot that pot from a distance to destroy it to close another gate.
Using either an arrow or a claw shot. There we go. Fairy in a bottle.
Just demonstrating something here. If you have full health and you run over the fairy, nothing will happen, and you can bottle it with ease. Flash forward to Skyward Sword, you run over a fairy, what happens? You pick it up. That's not consistent game design.
That's backtracking.
Oh yeah.
That's terrible. For shame.
Right, let's do this shit. Oh, of course it's pitch black. It wouldn't be a boss arena if it wasn't scary as fuck.
I certainly remember other boss fights involving pitch dark rooms. Where did you have to look again? You had to look in a certain direction. I just can't remember or put my finger on where.
Oh, the sword! No, please open up the door. Get someone else to fight it.
Oh no, remember, it was look up, stupid.
Okay, giant spider time. Go for it, Maxi.
Armagoma, if its name doesn't cue you in, yes, this is very similar to Goma fights that date all the way back to the original Legend of Zelda, and also the first boss of Ocarina of Time. The bosses even start the exact same way, with you seeing a giant spider on the roof. The armor part alludes to the fact that, yeah, most of its body actually kind of looks like it's made out of stone. In the first phase, it's going to crawl along the ceiling until it lines up its eye with one of the little light holes, and once it does, its eyeball will focus the sunlight into a fire laser beam of death. What you need to do is that right before the laser beam activates, shoot your arrow into its eye and it will fall off. Then use your Dominion Rod, because it is the dungeon item, to control one of the nearby statues and squish it with great prejudice.
Oh, that's so satisfying. But of course, oh, that horrible, creepy animation. See, it's got all of its legs now, Mexi. Are you happy?
Yes, because now it actually is a true spider.
Yes, I suppose it is. It even does the whole laying lava or nymphs thing that Goma did in the original Ocarina of Time.
Pretty much they're all the exact same moves. The only difference is that original Goma, it would attack you with its own body. This one, like I said, uses a fire sunlight laser. Does this spider know how to use the ripple? Dude, I don't think I would want to live in a world where spiders could use the ripple. I would just end it right there. We're done.
Is there a stand user who just happens to be a spider?
Okay, let's see. We got a turtle. We got a baby. Not that I know of.
Wait until, like, part 9 or 10 or something. It'll happen.
Doesn't like spiders, stands right in front of it as it walks towards you. Being real inconsistent here, Tom.
Not much more to say about this boss, really. Just take out the lava whenever you can. They drop a load of stuff like arrows and hearts, should you need them. Of course, you should be coming into dungeons fully equipped anyway, but I digress.
Yeah, pretty similar to the Goma fight in Oracle of Seasons, where that Goma would also lay larva, and the whole purpose of that was to refill your seeds because you were using the slingshot in order to damage its eyeball.
I can't remember any of the bosses, I'm gonna be honest.
Don't worry, we'll get to that, Tom. I also do like how blocking out one of the light beams is sort of your cue onto where exactly the spider is, because yeah, it can be a bit difficult to constantly spot it on the ceiling.
And there we go, Aragoma done and dusted. But it's not over yet, wait for it.
Did you not notice how its attack strategy didn't change the entire time?
I love this is amazing. Well, I suppose we could chase this thing down, but I think it would be funny to fire another insect into this thing and boom, it's dead.
I also like the music too. Even the game knows that this is a fucking joke.
And there we go, the penultimate shard for the Mirror of Twilight. Very creepy, kind of throbbing sound effect emanating from that shard.
I think that sound effect has been going on for all of the mirrors that we've gotten so far.
So you feel the darkness in your heart. That's what we're actually hearing.
Well, you would think going into the past would have been a bit more exciting, but Temple of Time had some good puzzles. Interesting concept. Pretty unique item. But, I don't know, it just feels really underdeveloped and really simple at the end of the day.
It's a very vanilla kind of dungeon, to be honest. I'm sorry if we didn't exactly see him infuse, but it's no Snow Peak Ruins, and I don't think any dungeon ever in the history of Zelda will ever be able to lay claim to that title ever again.
I think vanilla is the absolute best way to describe it. It's good and tasty, but at the end of the day, you could be eating chocolate.
Or toffee, or butterscotch, or strawberry. Well, I was hoping you'd come up with other flavours, maybe like mint chocolate chip and whatnot, but maybe I just got ice cream on the brain there.
I stopped at coffee. We're done here.
Indeed we are. We'll see you all next time for another installment of the Twilight Princess playthrough. See you then.